Kamala, you're fired. Get out, get out.
He could save this country.
I just wanted something new to happen.
I'm happy.
It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite.
In one of the world's most highly anticipated presidential transitions, the US president-elect will take over from the incumbent president. On the 20th of January 2025, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in as the President of the United States of America. This ceremony is a culmination of one of the most remarkable political comebacks in recent history. On the 60th presidential inauguration day, President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn in front of the US Capitol in Washington, D.C. Even before his inauguration, Trump has announced an array of plans for his first day in office. He's pledged to sign multiple executive orders, including imposing import tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. This week on WION WideAngle, the spotlight is on Donald Trump's inauguration and how the commencement of his second term as President of the United States could transform America. Donald Trump's return to the White House is all set to reshape US foreign policy, indicating radical shifts on multiple fronts as wars grip many parts of the world. Let's look at his likely approaches to different areas, from his stand on the wars to immigration to trade. The brutal Russia-Ukraine conflict, in which 1 million people have been killed, has shown no signs of coming to an end. Ukraine and its war with Russia was a big topic in the 2024 US presidential campaign. President-elect Donald Trump cited present US policy towards Ukraine numerous times to attack the Democratic Party leadership, arguing that the White House has been funding and arming a large-scale war that does not benefit America. On the other hand, Trump's Democratic opponents accused him of cozying up to Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying his approach amounts to surrender for Ukraine that will endanger all of Europe. But Trump has consistently said his priority is to end the war and halt the drain on US resources. In fact, during the campaign, Trump even claimed that he could end the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours. He had declined to give any further specifics.
If I become the president, I will end the war in 24 hours.
Donald Trump has said he identifies with the Russian position that Ukraine should not be part of NATO. Kyiv says joining NATO will deter further Russian aggression. Trump and his allies claim Ukraine's membership will unnecessarily provoke Moscow and drag the alliance into a war. On the 13th of January, just a few days ahead of the inauguration, the US President-elect Donald Trump said he will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very quickly after he takes office next week.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled.
Like you said, he famously said that he would end it in 24 hours. That's impossible. Even the 5 to 6 month deadline, it's not clear exactly how Trump is planning to do that, but I assume it's going to be a negotiated settlement between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine knows that with Biden leaving and Trump taking over, that he's in a much weaker position in terms of support from the United States.
And then there's also his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, his proposed national security advisor. Waltz has said that he's going to use leverage. He's going to tell the Russians that if they don't come to an agreement and accept a negotiated settlement, then the U.S. is going to increase the aid, the military aid to Ukraine. He's also said that he's going to tell Zelensky that if he doesn't come to agreement, the U.S. is going to cut off military aid to Ukraine. So it's going to be using that kind of pressure. And we're going to see some version of that. We don't know what that's going to be. There's a lot of discussion in the U.S. that Trump is Putin's poodle, or that Trump is so obsequious toward Putin that he's going to really be pro-Putin and Russia's going to get everything it wants.
The re-election of Donald Trump as the next US president was greeted with a mix of delight and fear in West Asia. Trump promised to bring peace to West Asia, implying he would end the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Trump has repeatedly said that if he had been in power, Hamas would not have attacked Israel because of his foreign policies. And true to that spirit, just 5 days before Trump returns to power, the US president-elect hailed a hostage release and ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas on the 15th of January. Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to say, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you." This was before any official announcement was made from outgoing President Joe Biden's White House. The deal is expected to bring about a ceasefire over several phases. Hamas is to release 33 of the 94 hostages inside Gaza during an initial 42-day phase. The detailed agreement outlines a 6-week initial ceasefire. Israeli forces will gradually withdraw from the Gaza Strip. But the question remains, who has really cracked the ceasefire deal? Was it Trump or Joe Biden? Both Biden and Trump seek to claim the ceasefire deal as a seal of their legacies in West Asia. Trump's involvement in breaking the ceasefire deadlock has been widely acknowledged, especially because of his warning of hell to pay if a deal was not reached by his inauguration day.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. Can you elaborate? And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
In the final stretch, Biden's administration was reportedly joined by Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff in a joint effort to secure the deal. The ceasefire deal is a significant step towards ending the dreadful 15-month war in Gaza. The deal offers a glimmer of hope for a more diplomatic future in the region.
We had the most secure border in our history. Now we have the most unsecure border in the history, I believe, really, of the world. I don't think there's ever been a country in history that's had a border where millions and millions and millions of people are flowing into our country.
Donald Trump's upcoming presidency aims to crack down on illegal immigration, with mass deportations, increased border enforcement, and the possible reinstatement of family separations. Going by the Trump campaign's policy promises in the lead-up to the 2024 election, there is a possibility of a large-scale deportation of undocumented immigrants. Trump wants to deport the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S.
Moving against illegal immigrants, or undocumented immigrants, we should call them, and their families. He's promised a campaign to begin with those who have criminal records and then move on to others. He's talking about millions of people. And he's talking about using the U.S. military to evict those millions of people.
He also wants to end birthright citizenship, which gives automatic citizenship to children born in the US. However, Trump might face limitations, as birthright citizenship is given by the US Constitution. To implement this, Trump may see long legal battles. Trump has yet to share details of the cost of such deportation operations to the Exchequer. The first Trump administration deported close to 1.5 million people, almost the same number as outgoing President Joe Biden, but far less than former President Barack Obama, who turned away nearly 3 million people over 8 years in office. Donald Trump has some big plans for the US economy. Trump plans to impose tariffs after taking office on January 20th, with claims that they are a response to trade imbalances, undocumented migrants, and illegal drugs.
Sure. So Trump has famously said that he loves tariffs. It's one of his favorite words. He uses them as, they're economic coercion, a method of economic coercion with foreign countries to try to force them to negotiate over things that Trump wants to negotiate, whether that's reducing the trade imbalances with countries like China and Canada, or as you mentioned, he is fixated on Greenland and securing Greenland for the United States, so that he's threatened tariffs against Denmark.
Reports, though, suggest that his economic team will get the tariffs rolling only gradually.
Tariffs will make our country rich. They tax us. Forgetting just for a second about the word tariff. They tax us, we tax them. And they tax us, almost in all cases, they're taxing us, and we haven't been taxing them.
He's targeting America's 3 largest trading partners, Mexico, China, and Canada, with significant tariffs. But what could this mean for global trade? Let's break it down country by country. First, let's talk about Mexico, a vital trading partner for the United States. Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all imports from Mexico, citing the ongoing immigration issue and the influx of drugs like fentanyl as the main reasons for his actions. The US imports billions of dollars worth of goods from Mexico annually, including automobiles, electronics, and agricultural products. In fact, Mexico accounted for 83% of its total exports to the US in 2023 alone. These tariffs could significantly increase the cost of goods for American businesses and consumers while destabilizing Mexico's economy, especially its auto industry. Mexican leaders, including President Claudia Sheinbaum, have called for dialogue, warning that escalating trade retaliation could backfire, hurting businesses and consumers on both sides of the border. However, some experts suggest that Trump may be using these threats to renegotiate the US-Mexico-Canada agreement ahead of its 2026 review. If these tariffs take effect, the future of US-Mexico trade looks bleak, with potential inflationary impacts and strained relations. But could this be a negotiating tactic? Only time will tell. Let's talk about Canada, the US's closest ally and one of its biggest trading partners. Trump's proposed 25% tariff on Canadian imports is also tied to concerns about border security and drug trafficking. Canada relies heavily on the US for trade, with 75% of its exports heading south. Key exports like petroleum, automobiles, and gas could see immediate price hikes under these tariffs. Justin Trudeau has already expressed concern, calling for a collaborative approach to address trade and border issues. However, this isn't the first time trade tensions have flared between the US and Canada. During the original US-MCA negotiations, both sides imposed sanctions on each other's products before reaching a deal. Experts believe Trump's tariff threats are an attempt to force early renegotiations of the US-MCA, which is up for review in 2026. If these tariffs are implemented, it could jeopardize the strong economic ties between the two nations and disrupt industries reliant on cross-border trade. Trump's proposed tariffs present a seismic shift in America's approach to global trade. While he claims these measures are necessary to address drugs, immigration, and trade imbalances, they could have far-reaching consequences for Mexico, China, Canada, and beyond. The future of these relationships depends on whether these threats materialize or serve as a bargaining chip for renegotiations. Either way, global markets and economies are bracing for a big impact.
When it comes to Mexico, he's going to put pressure on Mexico to cut off the flow of immigrants. That might have some impact. You have to remember that Canada is America's #1 trading partner. The United States has invaded Canada several times, but the last time was in 1812. And so Canada does not want to join the United States. If they do, they probably become a blue state, and they would help vote Trump and the Republicans out of office.
Now let's move to China, another major focus of Trump's economic policies.
And we have all the cards. And until I came along, don't forget, and Howard was going over the numbers with me last night, we took in $600 billion and more in taxes and tariffs from China. No other president took in 10 cents, not 10 cents, not 10 cents. And no, well, we're going to be doing things. We're going to be treating people very fairly.
Trump plans to impose an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports, accusing Beijing of not doing enough to curb the flow of fentanyl precursors into the US. Fentanyl is a drug that poses a huge problem for the US. China and the US have been at loggerheads over trade since Trump's first term. The previous trade war brought tariffs as high as 60% on Chinese goods. Trump's new policies could push those numbers even higher. With trade ties between the two countries already strained, this move could collapse the US-China trade relationship altogether. China has countered by pointing to its ongoing efforts to curb the production of fentanyl and calling Trump's claims baseless. This as the Chinese economy grapples with domestic challenges such as a property downturn and weak demand, making these tariffs even more damaging. Should this policy continue, it could lead to higher inflation in the US, retaliatory tariffs from China, and disruptions in global supply chains. US-China relations are headed for more turbulence under Trump's administration. Greenland, an icy, resource-rich island, is of huge geopolitical interest to the US. It is situated between North America and Europe, making it an ideal base for US military operations and monitoring key maritime routes, a path for ships and other sea-related activities between two locations. Greenland's strategic location is also critical for US defense. It is giving shelter to the Pituffik Air Base, which is the US Space Force base located on the northwest coast of Greenland, and it serves as a key Arctic outpost.
We need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security.
But it's not just about security. Greenland holds vast untapped natural resources, including rare earth minerals, an important element for renewable energy and technology. Greenland's economy remains dependent on fishing and subsidies from Denmark. Denmark has controlled Greenland for centuries, granting it self-rule in 2009 with the right to declare independence. Greenlandic leaders have expressed a desire for greater autonomy, but rejected Trump's 2019 purchase proposal outright. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen called the idea absurd, saying that Greenland's future is for its people to decide.
That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
On the 20th of January 2025, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States of America. But this inauguration is different from all the previous ones. Trump is breaking tradition by inviting foreign presidents and prime ministers, which is usually not the case for oath-taking ceremonies in the United States. Preparations for his inauguration ceremony are currently underway. Several global leaders are expected to attend. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will represent India at the ceremony. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has also confirmed being invited, stating that she hopes to attend if her schedule permits. And in a surprise move given the ongoing geopolitical tensions between Washington and Beijing, Chinese President Xi Jinping received a personal invitation from Donald Trump. Xi will send a high-level envoy to represent Beijing. Former US presidents in attendance, several former US presidents will also be present, including Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. The world will closely watch the global stage as President Trump begins his second term. His much-anticipated executive orders and policies like the ones we've seen will shape the dynamics of his administration. It remains to be seen whether Trump is inheriting a challenging America or a more conducive one. However, there is no doubt that Trump 2.0 will generate both hope and concern, and countries around the world will have to learn to face the challenges and capitalize on the opportunities that may arise.